Close your eyes right now, completely. Block out every trace of light. What do you experience? Darkness, yes. But more than that, helplessness. Without vision, the world becomes a mystery. You can't tell where objects are. You can't navigate space. You're dependent on other senses, fumbling through an environment you can no longer decode. Now imagine living in that darkness. Permanently. Not the darkness of closed eyes that ends when you open them, but absolute, unending blackness. No light, no shapes, no colors, nothing. This is cortical blindness, the result of damage to the primary visual cortex, the part of your brain that transforms light into sight. When that region is destroyed, vision doesn't just fade. It vanishes completely. This is what happened to a man known in neuroscience literature as TN. Years ago, he suffered strokes that obliterated his primary visual cortex on both sides of his brain. The damage was total, irreversible. Medically, legally, neurologically, TN became blind. He sees nothing, not dim shapes, not vague shadows, nothing, just permanent, absolute darkness. But one day, researchers decided to test something strange. They brought TN to a hospital corridor and filled it with obstacles. Cardboard boxes placed randomly across the floor. Chairs scattered in the walkway. Medical equipment blocking the path. Any sighted person would need to pay attention, stepping carefully around each obstruction. A blind person with a cane would take considerable time, tapping methodically, moving with extreme caution. TN had no cane. The researchers simply asked him to walk to the end of the corridor. What happened next defies everything we think we know about vision and human perception. TN began walking, not slowly, not hesitantly, with confidence. He approached the first box in the middle of the corridor and, without pausing, without breaking stride, shifted his body slightly to the side. He passed it cleanly. A chair on the left? He leaned right and cleared it without contact. Medical equipment on the floor? He lifted his foot and stepped over it, as if he knew precisely where it was positioned. Obstacle after obstacle, he navigated them all. Never touched anything. Never stumbled. Never hesitated. He moved through that corridor with a fluidity that seemed impossible for someone who sees absolutely nothing. The researchers were stunned. Cameras recorded every movement. Within seconds, Tian reached the end of the corridor, stopped, and stood there calmly as if he had just completed the most ordinary task in the world. One of the researchers approached him. "Did you see the obstacles?" Tian answered without hesitation. "No, I didn't see anything. Just darkness like always. But you avoided every single one. How? I don't know. I didn't see anything, I'm certain of that. But something was guiding me." That something Tian describes isn't mystical intuition. It's not a supernatural power. It's a real medical phenomenon, scientifically documented, called blindsight. His brain was seeing. His eyes were capturing visual information. But he, the conscious person, had no awareness of it. He experienced no sensation of seeing whatsoever. Everything was happening at a deeper level, a level that never reached his consciousness. How can someone see without knowing they're seeing? How can the brain process visual information, calculate distances, identify objects, guide body movements, all without creating the experience of conscious vision? The answer to this question reveals something profound about how the human brain actually works. And more importantly, it reveals that you have this system too, operating now, in this very moment. To understand what happened to Tian and what's happening inside your brain right now, we need to trace the pathway that visual information travels from the moment light enters your eyes to the moment you experience sight. When light reflects off any object in front of you, it enters your eyes through the pupil, passes through the lens, and strikes the retina at the back of your eyeball. The retina is covered with millions of light-sensitive cells that convert photons into electrical signals. These signals travel through the optic nerve like a data cable directly to your brain. But where exactly do they go? Most people imagine there's a single pathway, one direct route that ends in a single brain region responsible for vision. But the reality is far more complex and far more fascinating. The first pathway, the one everyone knows about, goes to a region at the back of your brain called the primary visual cortex, or V1. This is where conscious vision happens. This is where electrical signals are transformed into the vivid, colorful, three-dimensional experience you call seeing. Colors, shapes, motion, depth, every detail of the visual world you experience is constructed here. V1 is the gateway to conscious vision. When it functions, you see clearly. When it's damaged, as in TN's case, conscious vision disappears entirely. This is what most people know. But here's the secret that changes everything. There's a second pathway. An older, more primitive pathway buried deep in the brain. A pathway that doesn't go through V1 at all. A pathway that bypasses it completely and travels directly to other brain regions. Regions that existed long before conscious vision evolved. This second pathway goes to two primary areas. The first is called the amygdala. The amygdala is a small, almond-shaped structure, but incredibly powerful. It's responsible for detecting threats and responding to danger rapidly. When you see something frightening, before you're even fully conscious of what it is, your amygdala has already reacted. It's prepared your body to run or fight. It's an ancient alarm system, faster than conscious thought. The second region is called the superior colliculus. This area is responsible for locating objects in space, calculating distances, orienting eye movements, and coordinating body movements in response to the environment. It's like a primitive navigation system, present in the brains of reptiles and primitive mammals millions of years ago. These two parts of the brain work together to create what we can call the unconscious vision system. This system doesn't create images. It doesn't generate the colorful, clear visual experience, but it processes visual information extremely effectively. It detects motion, identifies locations, recognizes obstacles, assesses threats, all without ever informing your consciousness. When TN suffered his strokes, the V1 areas of his brain were completely destroyed. The first pathway, the pathway for conscious vision, was severed. But the second pathway, the ancient route that goes to the amygdala and superior colliculus, remained intact. It wasn't affected by the strokes at all. So when TN stood at the beginning of that corridor, his eyes were still functioning. The retina was still capturing light. The optic nerve was still sending signals. But instead of going to the destroyed V1, those signals went directly to the amygdala and superior colliculus. These regions received the visual information, analyzed the positions of obstacles, calculated distances, and sent commands to the motor cortex to guide his body. All of this happened below the threshold of consciousness. Tin didn't experience vision, but his brain was seeing in its own way. Doctors confirmed this using functional MRI imaging. While TN walked through the corridor, medical cameras monitored his brain activity in real time. The results were remarkable. The amygdala was glowing with activity, processing information intensely. The superior colliculus was extremely active, calculating and guiding, but V1? Total silence. No activity whatsoever, complete darkness. His brain was seeing, he was not. And here's the part that should make you pause. You have this system too. This ancient, unconscious pathway is operating in you right now, at this exact moment. The difference is that your V1 is intact, so you have conscious vision, but that primitive system, it never stopped working. It's processing information you never consciously perceive. It's seeing things you don't know you're seeing. You don't have blindsight like TN. Your visual cortex works perfectly. You see the world clearly and consciously. But that ancient, unconscious system, that pathway going straight to the amygdala and superior colliculus? It's working at full capacity, now, this moment. Processing an enormous amount of information that never reaches your awareness. Have you ever had the sensation that someone is watching you? You're sitting in a coffee shop, absorbed in your phone or a book, completely focused. Suddenly, for no apparent reason, something inside you says, "Someone is looking at you." You glance up, turn around, and there they are. A person across the room, staring directly at you. How did you know? You didn't consciously see them. You were focused entirely on what you were doing. But somehow you knew. That somehow is your amygdala. In the periphery of your vision, where you're not consciously attending, your eyes picked up a pattern resembling a human face. This pattern reached your amygdala before it reached your consciousness. The amygdala, which evolved over millions of years to detect faces and potential threats, recognized this pattern instantly. It sent a signal. Not to your conscious mind, but to your body. A subtle shift in arousal, a vague sense of unease. You interpreted it as intuition, as a feeling, but it was actually unconscious vision. Your brain saw someone watching you before you consciously knew. Or consider this scenario. You're driving on a busy highway, traffic is heavy. You're focused on the road ahead, perhaps listening to music, thinking about your day. Suddenly, something makes you glance to the left. A car 3 lanes over has started drifting slightly. You weren't consciously looking at it. You were concentrated on what's in front of you. But something directed your attention. You looked just in time to see the car swerve dangerously. You react, change lanes, avoid a potential accident. What made you look? You call it a gut feeling. Something told me to pay attention. But the medical truth is that the superior colliculus in your brain was monitoring motion in your peripheral visual field. It detected an abnormal movement pattern, calculated that it represented a potential threat, and directed your attention. Unconscious vision saved your life. The examples are endless. How many times have you entered a room and immediately felt that something isn't right, only to discover later that there actually was a problem? How many times have you met someone for the first time and felt distrust, unable to explain why, only to find out later that your intuition was correct? When you meet someone, your brain analyzes their facial expressions in fractions of a second. It detects minute inconsistencies between what they're saying and what their body language shows. It picks up patterns in their tone of voice, speech rate, pupil dilation. All this information is processed without your conscious awareness. Your amygdala collects it, analyzes it, and if it detects something inconsistent, something suggesting potential danger, it sends a signal. You experience this as a feeling or intuition. But in reality, it's unconscious vision processing information your consciousness never captured. Scientific studies have confirmed this repeatedly. People who trust their gut when making complex decisions often make better choices than those who analyze everything consciously. Why? Because the unconscious brain can process a massive quantity of variables, complex patterns, intertwined data at a speed that exceeds the conscious mind's capability by hundreds of times. Professional athletes describe moments when they feel the game slows down. Fighter pilots make split-second decisions without thinking. Emergency room doctors diagnose complex conditions based on cues they can't even articulate in words. These people aren't superhuman. They've trained their unconscious systems through thousands of hours of experience. Their brains process patterns at incredible speed, see things consciousness doesn't see, and guide behavior with remarkable precision. And mothers? The capacity of mothers to sense when something is wrong with their children, even at a distance, isn't telepathy. It's years of careful observation, constant calibration of the unconscious detection system. Subtle changes in the child's voice tone over the phone, slightly different behavior patterns. Minute signals that don't reach consciousness, but the brain detects, analyzes, and sends the alert. Something isn't normal. Here, the part that's simultaneously disturbing and fascinating. Most of what your brain processes never reaches your consciousness. The vision you experience, the clear, colorful world you see, is actually a construction, a carefully curated selection. Your brain decides what to show you. It decides what deserves to reach your consciousness. The rest? It's there. Your brain is using it, processing it, building decisions based on it. But you never know. Blindsight patients like Tien make this visible. They reveal the hidden system we all possess. A vast unconscious perceptual system, working in the shadows of awareness, processing information, guiding behavior, protecting, helping make decisions. We navigate the world seeing far more than we perceive. So the next time you have a gut feeling, an inexplicable intuition, a sense that something isn't right, don't dismiss it. Don't discard it as imagination or irrationality. It's not superstition. It's not wishful thinking. It's your unconscious brain, that ancient vision system that evolved over millions of years, seeing something your conscious mind missed. It's trying to tell you something. You're blind to far more than you know. And you see far more than you realize. This is blindsight. And it's not just a rare medical phenomenon in patients with brain damage. It's in you, now operating, processing these words, watching the world around you, seeing without knowing. And perhaps, just perhaps, understanding this changes everything about how you trust yourself. How you listen to that inner voice. How you respect that gut feeling you've always had but could never quite explain. Because now you know, it's not just a feeling. It's your brain seeing the truth before you consciously realize it.